This girl is very understanding. She has loved dancing since she was a child. But there is one more important thing that she always aims for, joining the army. This is the greatest ideal in her life. But the beautiful days did not last long. The war emerged and ended quickly. The North and the South entered a period of peace. She travels to Seoul, the city she has always dreamed of, preparing to welcome a new life. But there is always a difference between ideals and general reality. To be able to live here, she went to carry calves for a restaurant. Seeing her colleagues sitting and eating the leftovers left behind by the guests, she showed an incomprehensible emotion on her face. In the end, the work of carrying calves is not her stop. She continued to make money by singing in nightclubs. The boring life made her gradually lose hope. One day, she came to find a boss for heavy interest to pay off debts. There are many good things in his conclusion. Seeing that she was born in a beautiful and charming offering, he had a bad heart and wanted to use the medicine to control her. On the one hand, she teased her that this thing would make her happy, and on the other hand, she began to move her hands and feet with her. It seemed that everything was about to happen, and suddenly a subordinate caught a girl. The girl was covered in blood, and her body was brutally beaten. Looking closely, this was not the colleague she saw in the stir-fry restaurant. The pinhole on her arm made her understand everything. This is the end when he is controlled by the hospital. She immediately changed her face, criticizing the boss face with difficult words. Han immediately turned her off violently, causing her to fall to the floor. She also did not sit still and die, kicking the owner to the side with her foot, then quickly reached for a gun and aimed directly at him. The other owner thought that a girl like her would not be able to use a gun, so she did not show any fear. When she was careless, the owner quickly grabbed a kettle and threw it at her and rushed towards her, causing delay, but she still had a gun in her hand. At this point, what is there to hesitate about? She squeezed the grass and shot him directly in the head. It was also at this moment that she realized that people eat people, ghosts eat people. The two subordinates were controlling the other colleague girl, and she shot and killed one person again. Seeing that the other guy was so scared that he was about to urinate, she let go of her life and told her colleague to take the money in the iron way. Just like that, the two of them lived a dark life day by day. People who give heavy roles, there are successes, there are failures. After many crimes, her colleague was killed. She was wanted by the police and went to an old place where she did not exist. She pulled out a gun from her pocket, still a bullet. She was about to end the superficial life when a man suddenly appeared, when she realized that she was a wanted suspect. I thought it was a beast, but it turned out to be just an ordinary person. She immediately put the abrasive gun to the man's head. He didn't blink one, just asked her what it felt like to kill scumbags. The teacher didn't answer. The man said his purpose. I want to invite her to join the gang, bet a big game. The result of petty thieves who are not prisoners is also death. If you have done it, you have to do it big. Not only can you change the world, but you can also become a hero. She slowly lowered her gun and asked the man how much he planned to calculate. The dirty man put up 4 fingers and said 4,000 billion. After all, she only had one way to die now, not equal to a single dose. The man who claimed to be a professor, she asked him what he taught. The professor introduced her to a group of students, who were just like her admirers. The first lesson is to name and consider safety issues. Between each of them, it is necessary to have their own nickname to address instead of using their real name. The way is very simple. It is to use the name of the city that you want to come to later as a nickname. The first name chosen was Rio, although he was young, but he was a very skilled hacker. The second is Denver, simple thinking, the knack is fighting. The third is Moscow. Denver's father, who came from a minefield, is very good at making losses. The fourth is Nairobi, lying and dressing up are her forte. Next is a pair of fat people. The one with the hat is Helsinki. The one without the hat is the Oslo. Both came from a gangster group. With the strength of the two of them destroyed the whole gang. The sixth person to come out was Berlin, who was a master of scene control, very good at creating an atmosphere, also the most fiercely known criminal. The last girl to come out with a choice is Tokyo. Since then, each has had a unique nickname. The professor reiterated the purpose of this joint action. That is to steal 4,000 billion, then disappear without a trace. The looting must not have casualties. The people of the whole country will be able to watch this interesting drama, and they will become heroes of the people. So the problem here is, which bank reserves such a large amount of cash? The professor opened the red card, and the place to be robbed was not the bank. but the money printing department. Time passed until 5 months later. The money printing office was still peaceful as usual. The only difference is that there will be students visiting today. The director thought that it was an eager person. A female employee named Mizion had just walked in, and he immediately came over. Mizion said a few words to calm him down. Now is not the time to make a mess, to declare something important. At the same time, a group of students arrived in front of the campus to visit. Everyone followed the teacher's guidance into the mint. At this time, Tokyo and Nairobi were dressed as two schoolgirls standing in front of the gate. Berlin, along with others, are also on their way there. All checked guns and wore masks, targeting the money printing bureau's car. The car was about to run towards the bridge, and the two members also began to climb the bridge. Rio pressed the switch, starting the energy pillars on the bridge. The convoy was forced to stop. He pressed the switch again. An extremely dazzling sound rang out, and the communication system was destroyed. In front of the misty smoke, nothing can be seen. A car slowly approached, a person wearing a red suit, wearing a mask, holding a gun. A series of bullets were fired, and the guards on the convoy panicked. The rest of the members also walked in one after another, and in their eyes they controlled the game. A part of the guard and the driver were locked in the trunk of the car. All the members changed into a different outfit at the same time. They didn't catch all of them, but kept an acquaintance to avoid suspicion. But such a perfect situation could not make them enter smoothly. The guard wanted to verify Berlin's identity. Fortunately, Rio, sitting in the trunk of the car in the back, easily faked their identity. In the money printing bureau, the director Cho and Michonne are in a dispute. But he insisted on not accepting it, saying that she was using this bastard to snatch her property. At the same time, Berlin took out his information card. The security guard verified it for a while, and then let it pass. Rio inside quickly turned off the siren so that Tokyo and Nairobi could easily get inside. This girl was standing in the bathroom calling her boyfriend. The two talked very affectionately, and the girl began to move the phone under her skirt. Director Cho and Michonne are still arguing, and Michonne finally wants to break up. The director hurriedly held her back. On this side, Nairobi was spotted carrying a gun. Fortunately, Tokyo took action in time, causing the system not to sound an alarm. The bullet had reached the barrel, and it was impossible not to explode, and the two people took out their weapons and fired repeatedly at the ceiling. Berlin on this side also acted at the same time, although the guns were fired continuously, but no one was injured. The members assigned actions, gathering all the hostages in one place. This female student heard a noise outside, and as soon as she went out to check it out, she was immediately detected. The whole money printing bureau was disturbed to the point of lying blindly, and the professor was waiting outside. All the hostages were gathered in the big crockery, and Tokyo took a look, but did not find a target. The professor tried to calm down. This was the most important step in the plan. It turned out that the target to be found here was the female student hiding in the bathroom. Tokyo quickly found her. Rio started the defense system, and the big door of the money printing bureau slowly closed. The female students were taken to the big crockery, and they were all blindfolded. Berlin and other members sent a message to NASA. He was the main denier in this raid. The first thing to do is to appease people. He said that there is no need to be stressed. As long as you postpone obedience, you will not hurt anyone. Although he is now a hostage after going out, he will become a witness to history. Already a hostage, all electronic devices and nameplates must be copied. Suddenly, the desk phone rang at the crockery. The director said that this was a phone call from the main owner. If he did not answer the phone, he would be immediately suspicious. Mizion touched his hand lightly, signaling him not to shut up. Berlin immediately dragged Mizion to answer the phone. Mizion was very nervous. Berlin soothed her. As long as she didn't spoil things, she wouldn't be in danger. Mizion picked up the phone, and the general manager asked why the main door on this side was closed. She said that there was a slight problem with the network system. It seemed that Mizion was being reprimanded by the general staff. She was already in a bad mood, and after saying a few words, she jerked the phone. Berlin was very pleased with the Mizion's expression, and took her back to the same place. A few members who were not in the big hall, Rio, Denver, Moscow, were in the vault below. The door of the warehouse opened, and they immediately smiled happily, especially when they saw the money inside, and they were speechless. Berlin received the notice, told the professor to prepare to go out, and the professor began to count down the time. The director was also a little relieved, and this gang was also about to leave. The big door slowly opened, and the director secretly opened it blindfolded and looked at it, feeling that something was not right. Seeing Berlin coming, he immediately closed his eyes, and Berlin snatched down the cloth covering his eyes. He closed his eyes tightly. He knew that the rule was that just seeing his face would lead to death, but he had already seen it just now. Berlin could not spare him, but the professor had insisted that there should be no casualties. Said to go out, but not really out, just pretended to be his wife and ran away. Forced back by the guard at the door, it makes people feel that they can't go backwards. And the member went out, just in time to see a police car patrolling. They follow the plan to shoot into the sky. Originally, after firing a series of bullets, he could go back, but he didn't expect that the police would counterattack. Real was threatened to stand still and did not dare to move. The police fired one shot at him, and Nairobi excitedly aimed at the police to open fire. Tokyo pulled Nairobi back. Nairobi lost its calm, but Tokyo did not. If there are casualties, the plan will be ruined. Tokyo immediately threw out several smoke bombs. One side escaped from control, the other brought Rio back inside. It seems that the Rio was only punctured with a bulletproof pond. Not life-threatening. The money printing bureau was occupied by bandits, and the news came out. The government immediately discussed the plan. This is unprecedented. If it is not handled satisfactorily, it will become a laughingstock for the world. The head of the negotiation department, Yuvin, will be the one in charge of this. She received the notice on her French holiday, also frightened. Big and small crises have all been handled by her, but this is also the first time she has encountered the matter at the money printing bureau. On the other side, Backlund told all the hostages to take off their veils and give each of them a red suit. From this moment onwards, they are in the same boat. Everyone works together to overcome difficulties. In order to be able to contact the professor outside, his cousin had to spend a lot of energy. Even the cable had to be connected from the bathroom. Not only can you connect your phone, but you can also monitor the situation in the money printing bureau. 3 hours after the robbery occurred, Eugen went to the scene. The police set up a temporary gathering facility. The captain of the special soldier force was also prepared. They only need 5 minutes to turn the tide. But Eugen did not agree. It was estimated that there were about 50 hostages. If there was a fight, how to ensure the safety of the hostages? Instead, Eugen wants to choose the path of negotiation and solving problems with the least risk. The captain did not submit, and immediately mentioned Eugen's ex-husband to provoke her. Eugen's ex-husband is a politician. The Grand Commissar was provocative. If it weren't for this relationship, she wouldn't be able to sit in the position she is in now. Such words she had heard too much, had long since ceased to affect her. But there is one thing Eugen wants to emphasize. She is in the stage of fighting for child custody with her ex-husband, and those who laughed at her based on her relationship with her ex-husband ended up dying very tragically. As the Commissar's face darkened, the communication system was activated, and Eugen called the money printing bureau. Beckley was not in charge of the negotiations, and the phone was forwarded to the professor. The professor used a voice change tool, and the police couldn't verify his identity through his voice. Eugen in the field of human negotiation is also considered a master. With just a question of whether a helicopter is needed or not, there are several people sitting to be able to determine the number of robbers. Unfortunately, the professor not only did not fall, but also put the blame on the police. He was only going to steal some money and then run away, but as a result, he was blocked by the police. Trapped in the money printing bureau, fell into an awkward situation, and even implicated the hostages. Eugen took advantage of this time to make a request. Let the group of students go first. The flower of the country could not fade anyway. The professor disagreed. On the contrary, he told Eugen to send a helicopter first. Eugen also disagreed. It was okay to want a helicopter, but he had to release the students first. Too many hostages are not easy to control, and releasing a few students will not affect anything. This was a trap so that the police would believe that there were only 4 of them. But Eugen is very smart. It looks like she is firmly in control of the situation. Make the enemy negligent to say the force, but what if this is deliberate? Without waiting for her to think of this, the special army had already acted. The leader thought that the opponent only had 4 people. It was okay to fight quickly and win quickly. There was no need to be more relaxed. Eugen warned them this could be a trap, but the leader didn't listen to her. Hitting fast and winning quickly is the best choice. She can go home. Although Eugen was not in a good mood, but a friend texted her to comfort her. The two made an appointment to meet at a nearby cafe. But unexpectedly, that friend was the professor. The professor had predicted the situation, so he had prepared everything in advance. Eugen was also part of the professor's plan. Not only Eugen, but the specific army is also in his data. Eugen can come to see him, proving that the special army has taken the initiative, can be attacked at any time. Bok Lin was ready to teach the specific army a lesson. The money station has 5 entrances: the main door, the roof, the underground parking lot, the emergency exit, and the middle of the line. The main door and roof are very easy to detect, probably from the other 3 entrances. The 4 directions and 8 directions are all enemy troops, so what now? The clothes that were previously distributed were now time to destroy the effect. All the hostages wore the same suits, the same masks. After starting the heavy weapons, the special troops naturally did not dare to move. To make sure that there were no mistakes, they released a video online. The director admitted the female student, one spoke Korean, the other spoke English. The robbers and the hostages wore the same suit, and the hostages held toy guns in their hands, but it was difficult to distinguish between real and fake. To minimize unnecessary casualties, please be lenient with the police. The girl is the key character in the video. She is the daughter of the US ambassador. Dang Dao received instructions from his superiors, accepted negotiations, and ensured the safety of the ambassador's daughter. The special army immediately retreated. The 100 spirits announced this good news to everyone, but for the hostages this was not good news at all. The special troops came to rescue them, and now that they retreated, they would not be saved. However, they were forced to cancel and reluctantly applaud with the spirits. At the same time, Yuvin received the news and returned to continue negotiating with the bandits. It's all in the professor's calculations. After seeing off Yuvin back, the professor closed the shop and went straight to the control room. The first stage is considered a success. Next to the second stage, they need to steal 4,000 billion in cash. Banks don't keep so much cash, and the money printing bureau doesn't have it, so how can they rob it? The money printing bureau is a place to print cash. Of course, the only way is to be confident. Have you ever seen such a ruthless robber? The place where their friends want to rob is not the bank, but the father of the bank, the money printing department. Their goal is not to rob money. It is to print money using a real money news machine to print out 4,000 billion that cannot be traced, then disappear perfectly. Looking at the series of bills printed with white patterns in front of them, they couldn't hide their excitement. They controlled the money printing bureau for 15 hours. Moreover, they controlled it very stably. More than 50 hostages were divided into 2 groups, a cooking group and a working group. The working group is in charge of printing money. The cooking team takes care of the kitchen. The working group was divided into small groups, printing money day and night non-stop. On this side, the police are having a headache, not only robbers, they also have to deal with public opinion. Because among the hostages taken was the daughter of the US ambassador, Annie. I carried out the suppression by force yesterday, but it also ended in failure. Eugenie's negotiator appeared, said a few sentences that blocked the reporter's mouth. Anything that is suppressed by force is all set. The police will put the safety of the hostages first. As for Annie, it's just one hostage that they want to save among them. Eugene knew that the bandits led by the professor were very united. To deal with them, the police need to work together. So Eugene hopes that from now on, all important decisions are made according to her judgment. From the dispatch of troops, the arrangement, even the news disclosed to the media, she had to understand each one of them. The lieutenant handed over the materials obtained from the previous action trip to Eugene. Eugene summed up, although the suppression by force failed, but they have more or less grasped the bandits' combat power. First, the bandits' armament cannot be underestimated. Second, the robbers can anticipate the actions of the police. They must have been trained through some form of military training. From there, it can be seen that the purpose of the robbers is definitely not simply to rob money. After that, Eugene began negotiations with the professor. The professor was extremely curious about when the last time Eugene slept with a man. He felt the more he entered a rush like this, the more you should confide in each other, thereby creating a bond between the two sides. Eugene didn't want to answer. The professor changed to another question. Have you ever pretended to have an orgasm? This time, Eugene didn't dodge at all. She replied that she had, but not every time. The professor thinks that this is deceiving the other party, just like the 3 special forces that broke in last night. Eugene retorted that they were the ones who were deceived. It was obvious that the professor had deliberately revealed that there were only 4 robbers, and he also pretended to take a corner. The professor said that it didn't matter, The important thing was that they weren't being honest with each other. Warn the police not to try to deceive him anymore, otherwise they will all be in danger. Eugene promised that from now on it would be her command, and there would be no more such things. But the professor didn't believe her, wanting her to answer the question just now. When was the last time you experienced an orgasm? By the time Eugene could answer this question, he would have contacted him again. He felt that the professor was a madman, but what did Eugene think? He also thinks that the professor is a master negotiator. Surely not revealing his own thoughts, this kind of opponent is the most difficult to deal with. But she believed that the professor would get back to her soon, because the food was stockpiled in the money print. At most, it is only enough to last for 4 days. Moreover, controlling more than 50 hostages was not easy. The robbers were most likely planning to flee, but they couldn't run abroad. Therefore, they will gradually fall into a state of impatient anxiety. With this situation, it seems that the four can't bear to lose that person. The robbers looked so innocent, but it was up to them to see how long it would last. Father and son Denver are in charge of supervising the tunnel digging team. In the process, the two took advantage of the thin confidant with each other. Who would have expected to let the hostages have the opportunity to discuss the next rescue together? The director for the proposal needs to contact the police, but how to get in touch when all phones have been confiscated? No need to worry, the director has a way. Suddenly there was a loud scream, and the deputy department's hand was injured. The father and son of Denver hurriedly ran to check. The father told Denver to go get the first aid kit. The director showed that and silently followed. Unexpectedly, halfway through he saw Tokyo passing by, and immediately looked for a place to hide. Unfortunately, he was still caught by Tokyo, and then brought in front of the Backlund. While Backlund interrogated the director, Denver brought the deputy to the department. The director immediately ran back and grabbed the deputy department's hand to explain. Because his colleague's hand was injured, he ran to find medicine. As for hiding in Tokyo, it was because he was afraid of being punished. Backlund saw this, and announced to gather all the hostages. North Korea stands on the right, South Korea stands on the left. After the allocation was completed, Annie didn't know which side to take on. She does not belong to either North or South Korea. So Backlund ordered Rio to take her to the restroom and guard her strictly. Backlund directed the hostages to always be gentle and polite. But if anyone dares to disobey orders or endanger others, then they will receive the corresponding punishment. If a South Korean person makes a mistake, he will punish a North Korean person and vice versa. Therefore, the two sides need to monitor each other. The director expressed curiosity about the sanctioning method. Backlund didn't speak, and soon he would naturally know. Tokyo does not agree with the Backlund's approach. The professor has already told us to treat hostages humanely. This option of Backlund can cause the two sides to come into conflict. But think about it the other way around, this way can make them united. For example, North Korea, because it does not want to be punished. It is likely that they will help South Korea cover up its mistakes. Backlund does so because he feels creating a little bit of pressure air is better for their friend. Tokyo thinks that it is okay to kill chickens to scare monkeys, punish the director alone. Backlund explained again. His way of doing it was just to awaken the hostage's inner self. As for the stance towards the hostages, the balance has not changed. Tokyo can't argue again. Backlund can only leave angrily. On the other hand, the police arranged snipers in some important places, the rest in the back carrying tears. Now the police are like blind bears. It is impossible to know anything that is going on in the money printing bureau. Not only did the communication equipment not be detected, but all network systems were also disconnected. From there, it was guessed that among the robbers was an expert in information technology. Eugene suddenly thought that there was a telecommunications company recently. From there, all the surrounding communication charters can be detected. After thinking about it, she ordered all police officers to turn off their mobile phones and smart devices. Use radios to communicate with each other. Evacuate all the surrounding reporters from the owner's glass desk. No matter what the other professor had prepared, how perfect the plan was. As time passes, loopholes will be revealed in any way. If it wasn't between the hostages that there was a conflict, it was also a conflict within the bandits. What they need to do is to firmly grasp this unique opportunity. At the same time, the director secretly told his lover Mycian that he had a way to contact the police. The smartwatch they had used to sneak crows was in a drawer in his office. If they can steal it, they will be saved. The director's plan was to let Mycian go get the watch, bringing such a dangerous thing on the head of a girl, teaching him without the slightest shame. Mycian also knew that it was very dangerous, but still couldn't resist the director's sweet words. The director promised her that if he could escape safely, he would divorce his wife and marry her. At this time, Denver found that the two were examining each other, and hurriedly went to inquire. The director lied that Mycian was pregnant, so he came to inquire for a while. Din asked for Mycian to rest, otherwise she might be born prematurely. Denver follows the principle of not letting the hostages get hurt, and puts Mycian in the same room as Annie. As soon as Mycian walked in, she rolled her eyes and looked around. Annie reminded that this room also has surveillance cameras. Annie immediately saw that Mycian had some secret, and immediately asked what it was. Maybe she could help with a hand. Through the camera, Rio saw the two girls standing and waving, and immediately ran to see the situation. Annie said she had come to the red light and wanted to go to the bathroom for a while. After a few seconds of thinking, Rio took Annie to the bathroom. To help Mycian prolong the time, Annie uses the next beauty to approach Rio charming. Mycian took the opportunity to run to the director's office, conveniently stealing the watch. Rio was now immersed in Annie's sweet kiss. Suddenly Annie put the gun directly in Rio's face, forcing him to get his hands dirty. He helplessly told Annie to shoot, even taking the tip of the gun and putting it in his chest. Annie panicked, closed her eyes tightly and squeezed the grass. But the gun did not have any reaction. Rio quickly retrieved the weapon, opened the gun latch, and then forced Annie to lie still on the ground. At this time, the assassin suddenly detected the signal, and Wu Din guessed that it was the signal of the name. So she ordered her subordinates to open the channel. Just as Michonne was about to report to the police, Denver suddenly appeared. Michonne explained that she was so hungry that she came here to look for food. Denver heard that, took out all the food in the cow's shirt, and asked Michonne which one he wanted to eat. Michonne opted for cow's milk. Kind Denver saw that cold cow's milk was not good for pregnant women, so she decided to go get warmer cow's milk. As soon as Denver turned away, Michonne immediately opened the watch. She didn't have time to call the police when Denver returned. Michonne could only close the watch and hide it, but her actions made Denver suspicious. Denver directly grabbed Michonne's wrist. Do you think Denver will discover the smartwatch? Sorry, not at all. He thought that Director Cho had hit Michonne. Michonne hastily denied. To tell the truth, the Director Cho is married and the two of them are having an affair. After hearing these words, Denver was so astonished that he couldn't hold back, but he could still sympathize. Then he asked if the director forced Michonne to have an abortion. Michonne had no choice but to say exactly that. A sense of justice flared up in Denver's heart, thinking that the director was a jerk. After speaking, Michonne went to find the director for accounting. On this side, the police found that the call came from a smartwatch named the director of the. But the reason for the sudden shutdown was unknown to them. But Yuvin has a way of finding the cause. Then she called the professor, answering his question that the last time he had an orgasm was 2 months ago. The two of them are a buffer, moreover they work together extremely well, and there is reciprocity. The professor also had to answer a question from her. What did he do with the hostage's phone? The professor is also not afraid to speak his wisdom. All of them have been turned off. Now that Yuvin understood, she told the professor to say whatever she wanted. Although it was not necessary, the professor still thanked her for her good intentions. It seems that the professor did not know that someone had contacted the police. This is the first situation in favor of the police since the trunk incident occurred. But the problem now is that if the hostage turns on the machine again, how can I avoid surveillance and contact with the police? The technical department proposed to use text to notify the hostages. Also attach a link. As long as the hostages click on the link, they will have a way to hear the sound inside the money printing bureau. You can even see the image. Inside the money printing bureau at this time there was another shift change. Denver led the Mizion to find the director, intending to help the director give me a little more color. Mizion hurriedly ran back to intervene, then secretly stuffed the watch into the manager's pants pocket. Eugen's question sounded like no problem, but the professor still vaguely sensed something different. So he contacted the members of the money printing bureau and asked if anything big had happened. Rio picked up the phone, saying that there was indeed a big problem. The thing was that they were too bored there. The professor still felt uneasy in his heart, and then sent a message to Eugen. To Denver, the director was a protege. The lone director ran to the toilet with a stomachache, then prepared to open the watch. The police received the signal again, so all the staff became nervous. Who's tired is the phone of the internal delivery department, which makes them nervous for a while. At this time, the director had not even had time to open the clock, and was searched by Denver. As for Denver, all of the director's actions now were suspicious, so he told him to just open the door and go to the bathroom. So a good opportunity slipped out of reach. The cautious professor made an appointment to meet Eugen, wanting to listen to the progress on the police's side. Eugen was not convenient to reveal the content of his work, so he did not tell him. But coincidentally, Eugen's colleague called at this moment. She also told her teammates on the opposing team to turn on the phone. These words were all heard by the professor. But Eugen also detected the instability in time. As soon as she turned around, she saw the figure of the professor standing in the incense and eavesdropping on her talk. She hurriedly turned off the phone, waited for the professor to come out, and immediately put a gate number 8 on the table. Asked the professor why he overheard her talking. The professor began to express his emotions to her. He knew Eugen probably didn't like him, but I like Eugen more and more. He felt that she had another man. Just like that, Eugen was touched by the professor. Actually, it's not that she doesn't have any feelings for the professor. But with the current situation, she found it inappropriate to love the road. Returning to the base, the professor immediately contacted Becklin. Among the hostages was someone who was carrying a smartwatch. Becklin gathered all the hostages again. The director gives the opportunity to open the clock by clicking on the link. The police finally heard the sound inside the money printing bureau. At this moment, Becklin called the director to come over. The director quickly stuffed the watch into Mizian's hand. Becklin handed the director a scanner. Among the hostages here are people who are trying to contact the outside. So I want the director to be in charge of finding that person. Mizian saw this and quickly put the watch in his shirt. The director swept over each person, and it was Mizian's turn, and indeed there was a sound. Becklin pulled the Mizian, unexpectedly a metal transmission cord. While Becklin had just turned to leave, then the watch fell out of Mizian's pants pocket. Becklin returned, picked up the clock, and threw the earthen gun again. Then stomped on the watch in anger. This only chance of the police kept disappearing. While they were confused about what to do, the professor called. Eugen pretended to be calm. The professor couldn't be patient any longer. Having closed the contract to trust each other, the police are playing such a street. Negotiations could no longer continue. Signal spying is a step in the process that is done in accordance with regulations. Because of fear, it is normal for hostages to take such sudden actions. The professor understood this, so he didn't bother to calculate this time. But if the same thing happens again, he will immediately end the negotiations. Becklin was furious, and ordered the Mizian to be dealt with. Rio and Denver both disagreed. But the command is in the hands of the Becklin. Even if they objected, it was useless. Becklin assigned this difficult task to Denver. Denver advised Becklin again, but the result was the same. Denver reluctantly grabbed the gun, dragging Mizian in front of everyone. At this moment, the phone rang that the professor was calling, but Becklin didn't pay attention. He thought that someone had sent Mizian. The deputy head of the department said that the director was wrong, not related to the Mizian. The director hurriedly said that it was not his fault. Moreover, Mizian was not pregnant before. After speaking, the demon went down and begged Becklin to take his life. At the same time, Denver was standing with Mizian. He wanted to know if she was pregnant after all. Although Mizian didn't say a word, the expression on her face told Denver that he had been deceived. He was extremely angry. The gun went straight to the Mizian and squeezed the grass. Gunshots echoed throughout the building. All the hostages were frightened, especially the director. Becklin suddenly hugged the director affectionately. He knew that all of this was due to his attention, but he wouldn't punish the director, but the people next to him. At this time, the professor could not contact the members of the money printing bureau. There was a bad feeling in his heart. Tokyo heard the gunshots and ran over. Becklin also came to the scene to check the situation. The rest of the hostages waited at the crockery. The situation that Mizian encountered made everyone feel afraid. The deputy director directly blames the director. Isn't it because he lied to Mizian to do such a dangerous thing? Mizian didn't have to fall into this path either. A man let a girl go to do something dangerous, After that, he also brushed off all responsibility. Don't say that being a man is not worth it. Everyone listened, but immediately talked excitedly. Some people sided with the director, some people spoke for the Mizion. It even led to a dispute between the North and South. It's normal for people to be complicated. If it weren't for the robbers to control the order, the two sides would have rebelled. Bai Ling went to the toilet, directly lifted his foot and stepped on Mizion's hand. See if her sleep is dead. It must be said that the 100 spirits are really too shapely. After confirming that Mizion is dead, the 100 spirits tell Denver to dispose of her body. Through this, Tokyo could no longer endure the 100 spirits. Lin wanted to tell the professor everything, but was stopped by love. Tokyo followed the professor's instructions, not letting casualties occur. But the 100 spirits defy orders. The professor is the commander-in-chief, he needs to know everything. The two were arguing when the phone rang, and the professor called. The 100 spirits intended to threaten Tokyo, and saw the appearance of the sword and gun ready. If Tokyo dares to resist, it will most likely die on the spot. Tomorrow Rio will come to solve the problem, and Tokyo will leave safely. Bai Ling was the most on the phone, lying that there was a small disagreement just now, and it had already been resolved. After arguing with the 100 spirits, Tokyo runs to find Denver. This was where Michonne was hiding, and it turned out that she wasn't dead. She was just shot in the leg. This method was devised by Michonne to bypass the eyes of the 100 spirits. Fortunately, the first person to enter was Tokyo, otherwise things would have been more troublesome. Tokyo saw Michonne bleeding endlessly, and helped Michonne put on simple clothes and injected her with antibiotics. Tokyo felt that it was impossible to let the spirits make any more messes. It is necessary to find another person to replace the 100 spirits. However, if you want to force the bow, you must first deal with the two guardians Helsinki and Oslo. But the two of them really coordinated very well, and Michonne heard these words. On the other hand, Eugen finds someone to restore the video from the destroyed watch. In it, Rio's face is clearly captured. Sackman received information from him, 22 years old, had dropped out of medical school, becoming a master of medicine. You have prepared such a meticulous crime plan, you must have explored the terrain beforehand. Investigating and supervising near the money printing bureau, it may be possible to discover something. When making this plan, the professor told the members, he could only grasp the situation through monitoring software and telephones. What happened inside, no one could have predicted. Therefore, the professor needed someone to take his place to command the scene. Baklin nominated himself. Tokyo has some opinions, but the minority still has to listen to the majority. Eventually, Baklin was chosen as the captain. Denver and Moscow's father were responsible for opening an emergency exit. This is their only way out. Yuvin is busy with the robbery, not paying attention to his daughter and mother. The phone is always in a busy state. The daughter came home from school and climbed into a black car. The mother saw it and immediately called Yuvin, but the phone turned off and could not be contacted. The elderly mother had an unstable memory and had forgotten a lot of things. Important things are recorded in the notebook. She couldn't call Yuvin. She could only find another way. She contacted the professor, the future boyfriend of Yuvin. On the side of the money printing bureau, Becklin was afraid that his status would be shaken, tried to brainwash Rio so that he would support him. Tokyo came to interrupt the two. She and Denver caught the two most effective defenders. Becklin is now in a precarious situation. Tokyo told Rio to call the professor and report the truth about the situation here. Unfortunately, the professor was not there. After hearing the phone call, Yuvin's mother had already gone out. However, he did not go to Yuvin's house, but instead went to the police headquarters. This place has been cordoned off, strictly forbidding unrelated people from entering. The identities of Rio and Nairobi are exposed. Becklin went against the professor's instructions, causing the hostages to form an unturned, even breaking the principle of no casualties. If he continues to lead, the professor's plan will be in vain, so he was forced to leave his position. But Tokyo alone has no effect. Only the voting method can be used. Standing on Becklin's side, there was himself and two defenders. There are 3 votes in total. The rest of the people are all on the side of Tokyo. As a result, Becklin was forced to hand over the leadership. The professor returned and found that there was an internal dispute, immediately called. Becklin couldn't hide it anymore, admitted that he had eliminated a hostage. After hearing this, the professor was extremely angry, but Becklin thinks that's the most perfect solution. But the truth is not so perfect. People do not die, they also cause internal wars. Moreover, the identities of Rio and Nairobi have also been exposed. Becklin was tied to this side, his whole body trembling, sweating profusely. I don't know if it was due to tears or what kind of disease. The park team took the opportunity to sneak in between the hostages. Annie saw it, her face full of doubt. He took the communication device from his pocket. It emits a series of cryptographic signals in the Moser cipher. But Eugene Bezer is drowning in the love of the professor. This is an unprecedented robbery. The leader of the robbery gang is dating the police in charge of this case. The two fell in love, immersed in intense emotions with each other. But unbeknownst to Eugene, it was all in the professor's calculations. In the past, the professor sought all kinds of back-and-forth approaches to Eugene. It was through her to know the direction of the police's actions. Hung promptly notified his accomplices inside the money printing bureau. The captain was summoned by the Ministry of Security. They learned something terrible. A few months before the robbery, hacker of the robbers attacked the police system, and revealing confidential police documents to the media. In addition, Eugenie's involvement in the case of the money printing bureau. It is also in the careful calculation of the robbers. On the other hand, when everyone was asleep, the northern team secretly contacted the captain. The time the two of them talked couldn't be too long. The captain ordered the professor to be eliminated quickly. As long as the professor is gone, the rest of the bandits were nothing more than a bunch of misfits. If the casualties of the hostages cannot be avoided, then there is no need to avoid it. Getting rid of new professors is the most important thing. Bok Lin is being played with Rio. He was terminally ill, hiding the medicine in the director's office. Hopefully Rio can help him and bring it here. Rio didn't have a name, thinking that the 100 spirits were deceiving him again. Now the commander has changed to Tokyo. Everyone was overjoyed. It is best for the spirit to accept this change. Tokyo and Nairobi gathered all the hostages, informed them of a good news and a bad news. The bad news is that the 100 spirits have been temporarily eliminated. As for the good news, it is necessary to let everyone see it with their own eyes. Denver Axe Miss John came out of the door. Everyone sees Miss John, immediately clapped their hands and cheered in great joy. Tokyo manages the hostages quite softly. They only control the entrance-exit. The hostages can comfortably use the toilet. The injured person is treated separately. Men and women are also separated to sleep separately. They really didn't mean to harm people. I hope everyone forgets the bad memories that the 100 spirits have left behind, then build a good cooperative relationship. In response to Nairobi's proposals, the hostages have no word of reproach. He also volunteered to help them work. On the other hand, the urine after a warm night with the professor returned to the base. Extremely refreshing. The captain guessed that she had been with the other man last night. Urine didn't dodge at all. She hadn't had such a hot night for a long time. They didn't know that the conversation had been eavesdropped on by the professor. Urine is full of energy, directly contacting the professor. She guessed that the inside of the money printing bureau had begun to run out of food. The professor didn't bother to hide it either. But I will give you a reduction in the meals of the hostages. Maybe it will hold out for a while. Urine suggested that she supply food to the money printing bureau. The premise is not to injure the hostages. After hanging up the phone, he ordered his subordinates to prepare food. At the same time, the park team is thinking of a way to find the professor. Unexpectedly, he accidentally met the director. The director found out that he was not an employee, nor a student. While the park team was preparing to explain, Annie appears, saying that the park team is the driver of their student body. Then quickly take the park team away. Arriving at safety, the two revealed their identities to each other. In fact, Annie had already guessed that he was the policeman, and then she asked him what he had planned. Park team members need help, so he asked Annie if any of the robbers were called professors. Annie doesn't know this, but who does Annie know who she is? Woojin is in charge of receiving food. A driver's words woke her up. The food is prepared based on Korean food, so there will be no type of food like a sandwich. At this time, Woojin suddenly realized that the professor was not at the money printing event. Their cousins have all been deceived. Now she finally understood why the bandits were always able to stay one step ahead. Unless there is fraud within the police. Otherwise, how could he know each and every action of the police? Wu Jin suddenly remembered the car that was brought by the supervisor. After the robbers entered, both cars disappeared. Moreover, the robbers are always in the money printing game. It turned out that the professor was outside. She then ordered her subordinates to determine the route of the car's movement. The department they destroyed the car before committing the crime. In addition, the whole scrap car workshop was investigated. The person Annie mentions is Maijin because Maijin is often in contact with Vayu. Annie came to ask Maijin, not expecting Maijin to really hear about the professor, but there is no door to meet. At the same time, the professor asked Oslo if he had finished handling the car. Oslo confirmed that it had already been processed, but it had not yet been processed inside. This means that the inside of the car still hides fingerprints. After knowing the location of the destroyed car, the professor immediately ran straight to the scrap car workshop. At the same time, the police also looked up the location of the car. Ajin also immediately ran to the scrap factory. Now let's see whose speed is faster. Inside the money printing department, the park team led a few people. According to the director's guess, he went to find the professor, and then immediately eliminated the professor. Until then, the police will deploy a crackdown by force. Annie worries for the safety of the hostages. Once the suppression begins, there will be chaos here. Therefore, she decided to tell everyone in advance so that everyone would escape. But if you do, it may steal your attention. The director offered to arrest Denver, forcing him to tell the professor's whereabouts. Mizion hesitated a little. After all, Denver had saved her life. A layer later, Denver received a piece of paper, on which was the writing of the Mizion. She made an appointment with him after the meal before arriving at the warehouse. Denver finished reading it in his heart full of excitement, and then went to the warehouse as promised. Unexpectedly, there was not a Mizion but a hammer. His team woke up and saw the park team member using a plastic bag to cover his head. The director in charge of the interrogation party. Denver was extremely tough this time, and he didn't say who the professor was or who he was. The director began to speculate. He knew Denver and Berlin were not. Excluding Oslo and Helsinki, Moscow is not. Rio is too young. Nairobi just looks like a leader. So there is only one person left, Tokyo. On the other side, the professor and Yuvin were both on their way to the scrap truck workshop. The captain returned to receive the news that he had found the professor. So he ordered the professor to be immediately killed, and the force was deployed. If they don't take action this time, they will miss the only chance to end the robbery. The professor has arrived at the scrap factory, but the police are also about to arrive. He could only venture to run to the office, searching for information about the car. When he just got the car keys, he met the owner at the right time. The professor hurriedly made an offer to buy that car. The judge was suspicious of going to the scrap factory to buy a car. This kind of thing is rare. If you want to buy a car, you need to show your face to negotiate. The professor naturally refused, and quickly took the boiling kettle of water and threw it directly into the face of the master. Then take the opportunity to run away from the office. At this time, Yuvin brought his pursuer to the place, searching all over the professor's shadow workshop. The professor used the key to successfully find the car. At the same time, the deputy director soon noticed that the director was not okay, pulled Annie to a corner and interrogated. After learning everything, he was extremely worried about the safety of the hostages. Before he had time to think of a way to cope, the park team members began to act. He pressed on the fire bag of the building, and the robbers immediately became tense. Rio observed that the surveillance camera did not detect any fires. Outside the money printing bureau, the police also began to take action. It turns out that the general fire bag is a sign of the park team, so that the police know that it is time to be entered. At this time, the park team took a fire extinguisher and sprayed it all over the building. The hostages ran wild. He tried to grab the gun and look for Tokyo. Michonne really felt love for the sow in his heart, so he came to save Denver. Denver is being beaten up by the director. Michonne promptly ran back to intervene. He thought that Michonne and Denver were having an affair, so he picked up the sliding door and prepared to deal with Denver. Michonne saw this and picked up the gun and pointed it directly at the director. He angrily grabbed the gun and shouted that if Michonne was good, he would shoot it. Denver suddenly stood up and kicked the director for stupidity. Michonne laughed at Denver and he wanted to run to rescue Tokyo. Tokyo is currently in the surveillance room. She told Nairobi to temporarily stop printing money first. After gathering all the hostages, the railroad went to see how Berlin was doing. And she went to the patrol exhibition hall. She had just gone downstairs and saw the hostages making a sound. So she ordered Helsinki to follow her, and Oslo dispersed everyone to the big crockery. Tokyo went to the smoky exhibition hall. Beside them, a few people suddenly appeared, and the puck team saw the flakes of Tokyo. At this time, Denver chased after her, shouted that someone had broken in, and told her to immediately contact the professor. A gunshot rang out, making everyone stunned. After that, the general investigation received the news the professor was not there. By the time he shouted the name of the puck team member again, the other party was no longer silent. At the same time, Rio saw the Backlund lying on the ground, and immediately unlocked the handcuff. Unexpectedly, on the contrary, he was knocked unconscious by the Backlund. On the other hand, the professor on this side hurriedly wiped his fingerprints on the car with a towel. He quickly lowered himself, but the police surrounded him in 4 directions and 8 directions. At a critical moment, he drove straight out of the scrap factory. Yuzen also immediately drove after him. The police were on their way to chase the robber. The current emotion and speed can be said to be equivalent. The robber was also not a ruthless person. Suddenly on the road he encountered an old man. He let himself wipe the car down the incense. I also don't want to hurt innocent people. Finally, after a fan chase, the robber was surrounded by police. But he didn't succumb so easily. In a cigarette, step on the bait, wipe it straight into the river 100 meters away. A loud noise sounded, and the car exploded. The robber conveniently escaped. The northern team members thought that Tokyo was a professor, and aimed their guns at her as they prepared to peel the grass. At the moment of emergency, Denver ran to the news. There is an intruder here who must quickly contact the professor. At this time, the northern team member knew that he had found the wrong person. But it was too late, and the 100 spirits appeared and moved him forward. But before the northern invader died, it was time to bring the news that the professor was not in the money printing bureau to the outside. The reporters outside heard the gunshots. Du Hao thought about asking the police to give an explanation. Illusory reasoning stirred up. Yurin knew that the captain of his father acted on his own, causing a policeman to die. She was immediately extremely angry. The captain knew that he had done something wrong, and could only stand still and listen to the curse. But just inside it, the captain thought that Yurin must have understood clearly. The robbers let her be in charge of the negotiations, obviously with a purpose. The captain also suspected her, so he made a decision on his own. As if seeing her trying to chase the robber, he temporarily dismissed his suspicions. Now the two of them need to trust each other so that they can catch the bandits. Since the robbers occupied the money printing house, not a single hostage has been harmed, even risking to save the director. So maybe they weren't a bunch of vicious criminals. It's just bandits who like to act with a scepter. In other words, they are especially interested in public opinion. These words of Yurin were all heard by the professor who had just arrived at the coffee shop. This time, thanks to the help of the 100 spirits, otherwise Tokyo would have gone to see his grandparents sooner, their plan will also fail. Tokyo does not deny the merits of the 100 spirits. He also volunteered to return the captaincy to him. Perhaps his management is the best way to control hostages. Bak Ling agreed with Tokyo's thoughts, but the captain's position does not need to change. They all had the same goal. It was a success in getting money and then running away. If you have the same goal, then the process is not so important. Speaking of this, the police called. Rio connects directly with the professor. Yurin did not circle but went straight to the point, asked what the shooting was like. If the Yurin already knows but still tries to ask, then the professor didn't know anything now, lying that they were practicing shooting. But the Yurin still refuses to let go. She must confirm whether the hostage is okay or not. Only then can they be far from people's hearts. This is not the result that the professor wants, so I can only agree to Yurin's suggestion. Yurin was secretly rejoicing. Her plan was finally feasible. The special professor led by the members. The hostages must be separated for confirmation. Avoid unexpected situations. Moreover, you must always be on the lookout for hostages. Don't reveal what happened in the money fight, especially the printing of money and the death of park members. The next day, The bandits gathered all the hostages and stood at the big crockery. Tell them about confirming the information. At that time, what should be said and what should not be said. In everyone's heart, you must have understood clearly. Tokyo doesn't need too much emphasis either. At this moment, Annie came out again and asked, "So what about the dead policeman?" Beck Ling appeared and replied, "There were no dead policemen. It was just that they were practicing shooting." After speaking, Beck Lin introduced himself. His real name is Song Dong-ho, 41 years old. Born in Tichen, Pyongyang, he was arrested in a concentration camp at the age of 59 and detained for 25 years. Beck Lin revealed his identity just to make the hostages more secure, so that they don't do anything wrong. Hope the hostages coordinate with each other. Everyone was safe and sound. While everyone was preparing, Annie took the initiative to go to the deputy department. "I hope you cooperate with me and reveal the situation here to the police." But the deputy didn't want to tease the robbers, declined Annie's offer. Who dared the director to suddenly appear? Swoi took both of them to pass the news to the police. Annie immediately agreed without thinking. If something happens, she will be fine. The deputy was finally persuaded by the two people. After that, he secretly stole the newly printed money and gave it to Annie. Annie wrote all the important things on the facade. At this time, the robbers had occupied the money printing office for 98 hours. Yurin carried the mission, rushed into the cave alone, just to confirm the safety of the hostages. All incidents were recorded and broadcast live. The hostages' family and the media are watching. Becklin made his identity clear. Simply a person who leaves for a foreign country. Anyway, you don't have to fix the water. The two historians shook hands. Then Becklin took the Yurin to the large hall. Let her confirm the safety of each hostage herself. The first person to appear was the director for. He turned to him respectfully to express his nostalgia for his family. The rest of the people who came out all said that they were living very well, shut his mouth tightly and did not mention the shooting. When it was Annie's turn, she cried after saying a few sentences. Yurin saw this and went to peace. Annie saw that the time had come, and Lean planned to give the bill to Yurin, who would have expected to be discovered by Tokyo. She took the excuse that Annie was too noisy, and took Annie out of the hall. The trick and Annie's child was seen through. She took the initiative to admit that it was presented by herself alone. Tokyo reminded her to be a little honest. If there is a next time, it will not be ignored so easily. Yurin felt that it was too time-consuming to confirm each person like that, so Berlin gathered all the hostages once and for all. Thus, the efficiency will be higher and save time. After Tokyo agreed, Berlin released all the hostages, arranged to stand in an orderly manner in the large hall. Yurin took out the list and went forward to confirm them one by one. All the hostages are here, only one is not seen. It was Park Jian, a recently hired security guard. Berlin immediately affirmed that there was no such person among the hostages. But Yurin did not give up, took the photo and showed it to everyone to see clearly. The sound of gunfire yesterday showed that something must have happened. Faced with Yurin's question, Annie hesitated for a moment, then said that she had met this person before. Halfway through speaking, Annie was quickly silenced by Tokyo. The director also stood up to contribute to the fun. Berlin was forced to have no other choice, having to say that Park Jian is a special forces soldier sent by the police. Their actions were just legitimate defense. Yurin heard the answer she wanted. Taking advantage of this favorable situation, he blamed all the sins on the head of the bandits, saying that they violated their promises and killed innocent people. Someone sent the TV choreographer a USB stick, on which were written 2 words of the report. At this time, the big connoisseur suddenly welcomed another important guest. The mask was taken off. It was Park Jian's team member, Park Jian-yu. But he was obviously dead. How could he appear here? The thing is that night, Berlin did indeed shoot him, even aiming at the pile in the heart and shooting. But he was wearing a bulletproof vest, so he was not injured. Berlin finally followed the professor's instructions. There was no such person in a hurry to kill people. Otherwise, the bullet would have gone straight to the head, not the heart. Fortunately, Berlin has declared, only then could they have the opportunity to turn the tables, spreading the news of Park Jian-us death. It was a smoke bomb that they launched to deceive the police. The contents of the USB have just been announced. the public is criticizing the police. For in order to catch the robbers and force them to oppress by force, contempt for the lives of hostages. Experiencing this, the wind of public opinion hit the police. This time Berlin did very well. Tokyo also couldn't help but praise a few sentences. The atmosphere is very happy. Moscow ran to breathe a sigh of relief, holding a handful of colored earth in his hand. After a few days of trying, there was finally hope to get out. The printing of money is also about to be completed. After 23 days, they can be completely free. Thinking of this, they were overjoyed. But some people are happy, some people are sad. Leaving this place, he thought that Denver had to break up with Michonne. Denver is not a bad guy. He wanted to help Zion change the bandage again before leaving. Michonne agreed to his offer. There were only 2 people in the room, and Michonne thought that something had happened. But Denver told me to forget about you, forget all that happened here. After going out, you have to live well. Michonne decided that after going out, he would find another job. Don't bother to do money printing anymore. Michonne looked at Denver, unable to suppress the feeling of kissing him. Denver also couldn't hold back, and immediately reacted the opposite. The kiss became more and more intense. Denver's matter was settled. But the Berlin side seems to be quite serious. He could only rely on medication to relieve the pain. Through the recent actions of the police, the reaction of public opinion is very harsh. However, there must always be someone who is responsible. That unlucky guy was Captain Cha. Yuri disagrees with the decision of his superiors. If your captain is replaced, change your business. Captain, thank you for speaking for me. But the words that need to be said must also be said. Captain Cha still felt that Yuri's new boyfriend had a problem. These sentences don't sound like a little in the hand. Although the two have not been in contact for long, but Yuri knows he's not that kind of person. The most important thing is that she trusts and loves him very much. When the envoy heard you say these words, there was an indescribable feeling in his heart. This is probably love. Lately, Yuri has had too many troubles. She asked the professor to go for a few drinks. After a little bit of sadness, the mood seemed to be better. At the side of Yuri, the professor slightly missed the fate of a robber. Being a coffee shop owner with her imagines the future. It seemed that all guilt in an instant disappeared. The two of them finished drinking and walked home together. The professor from the bottom of his heart said to Yuri, I hope you don't stop getting involved in the case at the money printing bureau anymore. He felt sorry when he looked at her tired. Yuri sensed the monk's interest and immediately rushed over to hug the professor. It seemed that all the sorrows were dissolved. A rational Yuri is revived. It is very difficult for the professor to be a little more comfortable. But fate brought him a joke. Yuri accidentally discovered that there was a piece of paper fairy in her pocket. This is a clue that can help her turn the situation around. Actually, in the chaos of that day, Andy sneaked out a corner and took the opportunity to put it in Yuri's pocket. After Yuri discovered an important clue, hurriedly said goodbye to the professor and left. The professor felt that something was wrong, and he returned to the coffee shop. As soon as he walked in the door, a man's voice sounded behind him. It was the captain who came to find him to talk.